Yes, yes. Thank you very much. He has also been a chief of football and he has been really serious. Can you hear me? Yes, yes. Perfect. You may start. Perfect. So, I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Baloglu. Can you hear me properly? Yes, yes, yes. Perfect. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, at least online, with the online way, and they can participate in this conference. And thank you, Mrs. Baloglu. And if you can, I would like to also thank the Institute of Sparta and personally Mrs. Kanelopoulos for the honor that she had made to me to give me the option to have my presentation. And I would also like to thank the Scientific and Organizational Committee for the same reason. And if you permit me, I would also like to salute the representatives of the municipal and the region of Sparta and all people that are involved, all the bodies that are involved, the University of Peloponnese, Ionian University, Sapienza University, for the whole procedure of the organization. Unfortunately, a health serious problem as far as my family is concerned, didn't give me the chance to be here with you. And it would be such a pleasure to be here to present physically this presentation. And I'm really happy that the chair of this session is my sincere Mrs. Baloglu, Mr. Beatrice, that I had the opportunity to write a book. And it's such an honor and a pleasure to be here and to read this abstract that has to do with the procedure of monetization of Sparta. I may be really tired, but okay. Can you hear me? Perfect. So I will continue if you give me your permission in English. The presentation is going to be in English because I have some abstracts and I don't want to give a wrong interpretation in the meaning. So I'll continue in English. Here are the interventions of Mrs. Baloglu. Okay, yes, we agree. Go on.
I analyze the gradual procedure of monetization of the Spartan economy and the role of money in the economy. Of course, in brief, I can commemorate some things. I'll mention some things in brief. Sparta, since all of us know about them, Sparta was the greatest military power in mainland Greece during the Archaic period and one of the key powers during the Classical period till 371 before Christ, when after its defeat at Leuctra, its decline gradually started. It is well known that Sparta's political and institutional structure, as we already analyzed in our conference so far, was shaped by two kings, the five efforts, the Gerousia of 30, and the Apella, which was a democratic body. The Apella was the popular assembly of all male Spartan citizens, the so-called Omi, meaning full citizens. Now, Sparta's economic institutions in brief before I proceed to the analysis regarding the monetization of Sparta. Sparta was to a higher degree than the average city-state and agricultural, than the average city-state of the times, I mean, an agricultural state, but agriculture was not carried out by helots and periki, but agriculture was carried out, by helots and periki. Periki were a social group at Sparta, those living around the main city-state. The services sector was very small, mainly concerning trade, probably again in the hands of the Periki and possibly some foreigners. There were no Spartan banking services and almost no commercial shipping activity like in the institutional model, for example, if we compare it to the advanced for the times institutional model of the Athenian democracy, classical Athens. Foreign trade was also relatively small, since the Spartan way of life frowned at luxuries or works of art and had autarky at its ideal. Their international commercial policy, as very skillfully and brilliantly already analyzed before in the previous presentation by Professor Bitros, was based on barter and counter trade, as convincingly argued by Professor Bitros in the previous paper. So before we proceed to see how the Spartan monetary system worked and the monetary institutions, we need at first to see the whole picture in brief of the monetization of the Greek world of the times. We know and already mentioned, and yesterday and today, if I'm not mistaken, that the monetization in the Greek world of the time started in the late archaic period from Anatolia, from Lydia, and then we have in the classical period and the Hellenistic period that followed the extensive use of coins in the Greek world during these periods, which proved crucial to the development of trade and the protection of private property. Already, since the classical period, the Greek city-state used subdivisions of coins, thus covering the whole range of transactions. As in Greek antiquity, so in modern economies, the divisibility of currency is a key component of economic activity and indirectly implies the existence of a developed economy. So, at least for an institutional economist point of view like me, the divisibility of currency is very important because it denotes that transactions do not only refer on large value products and services, but also small value products and services. This is an indication that the economy has advanced characteristics. And this is an intertemporal axiom. And here is the proof. Some coins, I present you them in brief. We know that, for example, I have placed here in the left-hand side of the transparency an Athenian drachma, the famous Athenian drachma, another drachma, gold stater, 2 drachmas, a gold stater from Athens, and in the right-hand side of the paper, an Athenian hemidrachma, 3 obols. I remind to all of you that 1 drachma was equal to 6 obols. Of course, we have some subdivisions as well, as you see in these pictures. An Athenian diobol, an Athenian obol, an Athenian tritartemorion, an Athenian tetartimorion. So all these subdivisions of the Athenian currency. And of course, this applies also to the rest of the Greek world of the times. We have the famous Aeginitan stater, a Corinthian stater. I indicatively present these coins to you. Another one is a coin, a stater from the Boeotian League in Aliertos, in the city-state of Aliertos. And of course, in the right-hand side of the paper below, it is the famous Alexandrine, currency, the Macedonian tetradrachm, that was the universal coin in the Hellenistic times. So, having all this in mind, I proceed now to what was going on in Sparta regarding its monetization. And we know that at about 600 before Christ, Lycurgus, the famous Spartan lawgiver, put into Sparta's constitution a provision that banned the circulation and position of gold, silver, or other precious metals as a means of transacting business, and replaced these forms of currency with iron currency, iron spites, variously reported as being in the form of disc or bars. The provision was part of a plan of social reform intended to spare Sparta the evil consequences of wealth concentrated in the hands of few citizens. And here I present a quotation from a dear colleague and friend, like Paul Cartledge, Professor Bitros, Professor Baloglou, dear colleagues and friends. Here I cite this quotation from Alain Bresson: whether the iron spites were actually used in Spartan market exchange has been questioned. The story is not necessarily fictional, and they may have played the role of tokens. This fiat money, however, was very convenient, of limited use in practice, and it bore no value in other cities. It was a way to radically separate domestic and foreign exchange. Alain Bresson further argues that at some point after the victory of the Spartans over the Athenians and their allies in 404 before Christ, which we know it is the end of the Peloponnesian War, the ban on position of gold and silver was lifted, but nothing indicates, what is important is his finding is that nothing indicates that payments, for instance, in the agora, in the marketplace, as we know, had to be made in coins or in coins of a certain type only, or even in weighted bullion. And he finally concludes that another side of this limited monetization was that at least until the Hellenistic period, position of previous metal, either gold or silver, was mainly restricted to a limited number of its elite members, the Spartiates, whose short-term interest was to keep their gold and silver in reserve rather than in circulation. And of course, this leads me to assume that the above evidence implies that between the end of the Peloponnesian War till 267, where officially Sparta has launched its currency through the institutional reform, the monetary institutional reform by King Ares I, that some quantity of silver or gold, either in bullion or in the form of coins, has actually entered Sparta, but was not legally circulated in the economy. It was probably used in a black market logic, and this is probably also related to the well-known imbalances of the wealth of the Omni that characterized this period. And to this point, I fully agree with the assumption and the wise interpretation of this historical data by the previous paper, again by Professor Bitros, regarding the possibility of black markets in the same logic of the Soviet Union. But since we proceed to the Hellenistic period, we have King Ares I, who introduces the system of monetization, as was the case in the rest of the Greek world. So actually, King Ares makes an institutional change regarding money, and he introduces coins in the logic of the rest of the Greek world. Why he did this? Because he wanted to finance and the necessity to pay, the mercenaries in his war against the mighty Greek kingdom of the north, the kingdom of Macedon, during the Hermonidean War. And here is the proof, some nicely made coins. I reproduced them for you. In the left-hand side of this transparency, we see a tetradrachm issued by King Ares, struck at about this particular coin in 265. It depicts the head of Heracles or an Alexander wearing a lion's skin on the right-hand side. On the other side of the currency. And in the right-hand side of this transparency, you see another one, a noble, which denotes again that Sparta does not only introduce high-value currency, but also small-value currency in order to satisfy low transactions regarding, low-value transactions. And of course, since as this policy introduced at Sparta, then it followed by further kings. We have archaeological evidence has found that we have coins issued by the great social reformer, King Cleomenes III. We have, you see, tetradrachm, as you see in this transparency, a famous tetradrachm issued by King Cleomenes. What is more important, what is actually equally important is that, as you see again, at that time of Cleomenes, we see small value denominations, small value subdivisions, like a triobol, an hexachalcon, and trichalcon. Hexachalcon and trichalcon were made by copper, as we understand. And this, in the case of today's practice, for example, the European Union, we have small value copper-made cents in the European Union. So I believe that this practice was retained throughout history, and again, it has its origins in ancient Greece. So the Spartans not only issue coins now, since Ares I, but they issue also small value coins to satisfy the variety of transactions, either of high or low value. And the last part of this analysis of mine, which I hope that you would like so far, has to do with what happened as soon as Sparta became a member of the Achaean League. As we know, Achaean League was an attempt of the Achaean leaders of the time to create a strong federal type of state, a democratic federal type of state, so that they achieve the benefits of unification, like, for example, the national commerce. Of course, Achaean League is a very important issue. To be honest, I have written 2 books about the Achaean League, but because of the limitation of time, for now I can only say that in 189, Sparta was forced actually to become a member of the Achaean League after the decisive intervention of General Philopoemen from Megalopolis. But what is important from an institutional point of view, which interests me in person, is that, of course, the Achaean League had more than 100 member city-states. Actually, all the Peloponnese was unified under the Achaean League. But what is important from an institutional point of view is that as soon as Sparta became a member, it had to follow the same monetary practices and standards that the rest of the polis, of the city-states, of the federation. And the general practice followed by either independent cities or those part of the Hellenistic federal city-states was that each had the right to mine its own coins, providing that it had the technical know-how to undertake the task effectively. In accordance to this, 2 eminent historians that focus their research on numismatics and money, Emily McKill and Peter van Alphen, have further found that one additional monetary development of the classical period that was intensified during the classical period through the non-Greek world was the appearance of cooperative coinages, as they characterize them. By this, they mean the coordinated production of coins by more than one polis on the same weight and standard. This is important, and usually with at least one common type. Okay, so all these coins issued in the name of the Achaean League and could be circulated freely and without restrictions between the city-state members of the Achaean League for commercial and other transactions. So one might say today, I think it would not be wrong to say that the Achaeans of the times, they somehow created something like what we could interpret it in modern terms, a single European market. I mean, a wide range and a wide area where goods and services can be circulated with common currency, like the Eurozone in one might say nowadays, if he or she tries to approximate what the Achaeans did through their federal system at that times. And here is the proof. I present you some coins in brief, an Achaean hemidrachm, an Achaean hemidrachm issued at Argos, another one at Patras, another one in Mandinia, another one in Aegeon, another one at Argos, another one in Megalopolis, another one in Messini, and most of the polis had their own coins. You see that this is a federal coin because you see the famous, the characteristic inscription Alpha Chi, AX, Alpha Chi, you see, which denotes that this currency was issued in a single polis, for example, Megalopolis, but as a federal coin. And the same order, here is also, I present you even smaller denominations, smaller subdivisions, for example, Achaean obols and Chalki, which is important for me, and I mean institutional research for the reasons I told you. It denotes advanced characteristics of an economy, and the same applies for Sparta. Sparta, as soon as it became in 189 a member, she had to follow the same rules. And we see here federal coins issued by the city-state of Sparta. You see these nice, very nice coins. I present you in this transparency an hemidrachm, three obols. Further coins, just for our conference, I present them to you. And of course, finally, also small denominations, small value coins, which is also an indication that Sparta accepted the whole procedures of monetization like the rest of the city-states of the times, and they issued also small value coins, which is an indication that they wanted to cover every aspect of transactions, commercial transactions, either of high or low value, which is again an indication that Sparta also followed advanced practices in regarding monetization since Arefs I and later on, even as a part of the Achaean League. So I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. My conclusion is that in this paper, we analyze the gradual procedure of monetization of the Spartan economy. We argued that during the archaic and the classical periods, respectively, the Spartans remained opposed to the idea of monetization, like our colleagues also supported in the previous presentations, at least in the way the majority of ancient city-states did. But, I mean, during that time, they used currency in a marginal way, iron spikes, as we said. This was a deliberate act because they believed that if their economy was monetized, this would cause great wealth imbalances and would harm their socioeconomic structure. This system, what is important is that officially it was abandoned by the necessity of King Arefs, who is an institutional reformer regarding money for Sparta. He wanted to pay the mercenaries in order to fight the kingdom of Macedon during the Chremonidian War. But since this happens, it changes all the mentality of the Spartans through their coins, at least one might argue. And of course, the last part of this journey is Sparta as a member of the Achaean League, which then Sparta obliges, to follow the weights and standards and the monetary regime that is applied for the rest of the city-states. I hope that you like this presentation, and I'm at your disposal in case you may need some clarification or whatever. Thank you very much. It was my great honor to present this paper in this conference. Thank you all.